Gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some first impressions of the latest games releasing. As always, I'm Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Getting right into it, the game does a pretty good job of getting you into the swing of things if you haven't played the original, or if it's been a long time, you can kind of just jump in because they give you a nice long, about 12-minute long video, documenting and describing the events from the previous game to kind of get you on track. From there, the game has a pretty good tutorial sequence that'll get you up to speed with this relatively complicated kind of game. The basic setup from the last game here is that it's 2 years after Human Revolution. The world is kind of divided more than ever, not only just because some people have augmented arms, legs, and other body parts, but because of the AUG incident at the end of the last game, which was an end of the world plot gone awry that caused people with augmented limbs to go out of control and start killing everything. As much as the main character Adam Jensen saved the day, there are some societal remnants of what went down. There's a distrust for these augmented people. So basically you're plopped down in a futuristic Prague, which has basically found itself in the epicenter of this division between regular humans and augmented citizens, kind of echoing like the civil rights movement. And as Adam Jensen, you're once again a totally nonchalant badass and you work for Interpol, but also you're working for an underground hacker group trying to expose the Illuminati and their machinations within Interpol. Okay, I'll say this straight away. The moment-to-moment gameplay here, the actual core gameplay loop, is amazing. It's so much fun, and I think it's even better than Human Revolution. But overall, as a total package of a game, is it better than the previous? I don't think so. There's a lot of good here. I absolutely love this game. I played through it twice, but there's also a decent amount of cons. But like I mentioned, the gameplay is way more realized this time around, not only just because you have new augments and abilities and stuff like that, but the way the system works now is that you have these extra special abilities that are upgradable as well as your normal abilities, and these ones are kind of like overclocking your system, so you have to pick and choose which ones you want to use, and these are probably the most unique new abilities to the game, like remote hacking, shooting your blades out of your arms, turning your skin into a big heavy shield, and stuff like that. All these systems are customizable and mappable, and it just makes it a good experience. But not only that, the game really worked this time around in terms of expanding the environment and basically making the play scenarios and areas much bigger with even more different ways to tackle each scenario. Maps and situations this time around are absolutely huge, and there's so many different ways you can tackle it, whether you want to be a guns blazing character, a stealth character, or more of just a social and slash hacker type of guy. A lot of people opt for stealth. You can see through my gameplay, I opted for a stealth playthrough, but the shooting this time around does feel much better. It's a bit more snappier, it's a bit more tighter, so if you do want to go through it guns blazing, the game definitely feels decent enough to do so. I really like the new social interrogation aspects where you can analyze a human being's state as you're speaking to them and make decisions on what you're supposed to say in order to coax or get certain things out of them. Adam Jensen is a well-rounded badass, and it is just so much fun playing as him, I'm not gonna lie. And what I was a huge fan of here is the world building. I'll admit, it kind of sucks that most of the game takes place in one hub city instead of multiple, this being Prague, but you get to see Prague in different states, different times of day, and different sorts of levels of chaos. And that's what I like about these newer Deus Ex games, is that they really give you a good vibe and a sense of place. And the world building here is just really great because everywhere you look, you see different little stories, things hidden, messages written on walls, people in different scenarios going about their lives, but it all just fits very well into this futuristic world where people are being oppressed. To me, I found it pretty convincing and I found it pretty cool. From a gameplay standpoint, the world building is also awesome because while Prague is the only real hub world you're really walking around, it's also absolutely huge and it's like labyrinthine to a crazy degree. You can spend hours just wandering around the streets, finding secret manhole covers, sneaking into apartments, stealing and hacking computers, and just kind of dicking around and doing whatever you want. That to me is where the game is the most fun. That to me is also where it feels the most like a classic style PC game, sort of like the original Deus Ex. You're just creeping around, hacking, and doing weird stuff, and just kind of manipulating the game's systems to your will. That coupled with the stealth system that I still think is pretty damn good, while the AI can be a little stupid here and there, the radar, the cover systems, they all work pretty damn well. Not to mention, I just really like Adam Jensen. I know a lot of people probably think he comes off super generic and like overly cool and badass, but there's some weirdness about him that I can't really describe, that he does still come off kind of like a normal person. I can't really quite put my finger on it, but I do just like him as a character. Most of the characters are strong, their motivations are clear, and generally you're going to enjoy talking to everybody you encounter in the game. That's just part of that Deus Ex magic, walking around, sneaking around, and chatting it up with people. The game is insanely fun because it gives gives you a bunch of tools and different ways to tackle a scenario, and basically every player is going to have a different experience here. I've known a few other people that have been playing, and we've come back with completely different stories of how we've tackled objectives. And I love that shit. That is awesome. Unfortunately, as much as I like so many things about this game, there are quite a few things that kind of bothered me. One thing that I really missed, especially from Human Revolution, is that the general vibe and the music is just less. It's just not as cool and not as iconic as it used to be. I don't know, something about Human Revolution, from the yellow gold filter to everything to the weird futuristic music, the game just had this kind of dream-like feel and quality to it, and that was part of the reason why I was so attached to it. Unfortunately, the Deus Ex Mankind Divided kind of drops that whole thing. Everything here just feels really real and normal, you know, from like a vibe and music standpoint. Of course, you're gonna see wacky, crazy places like an augmented city made out of basically garbage, and a really funky red light district in Prague with a bunch of neon lights, but ultimately without that filter and that tone of music, it just doesn't feel distinctly like the last game, which was something I was hoping for, but they tried to make it feel different. I just don't really like the way it feels. Not only that, animations and conversation are still really stilted and awkward. I don't know if you remember that from the last game, but sometimes it's a little distracting and it'll take you out of it. But I think it is worth mentioning though that the character models are top notch, especially Adam Jensen. He looks absolutely amazing. And like I said earlier, the actual core gameplay and just the general playing and having fun with Deus Ex, it's my favorite part and it's the most well-realized aspect of it, but unfortunately, it seems like the challenge wears off after a while. Once you really get upgraded, you are just too much of a badass that the game doesn't pose as much of a challenge toward the later hours. While I do like that this game is designed more around allowing different playthroughs completely from one end to the other, I just felt like the game balance wasn't quite there at the end and you just never really had your abilities truly tested. Especially when you have so many tricks up your sleeve by the end that you can just wipe the competition. And I think the biggest crime of Deus Ex Mankind Divided is that the story seems to start strong, it has some really good moments, and especially with the double agent thing of Adam Jensen, it seems like it's gonna go places, and it kind of gets there, but ultimately the whole story meanders and kind of ends on an abrupt and kind of awful cliffhanger. It's not even really a cliffhanger, it's just a totally abrupt cutoff of an ending, and it's, I gotta say, a major disappointment. The story, and basically one of the main reasons you're playing the game, is ultimately unsatisfying, and I think that is a major ding against the game, but thankfully, like I said, the gameplay holds up enough that I still jumped back and played through the game again. So, Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I will say I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook and even Reddit and stuff saying that it kind of comes across as a Deus Ex Human Revolution 1.5. Like, it's not a true sequel or anything like that, but I will say once you actually have the controller in your hand and you're playing through the game, this is a sequel, and it is earned. Like I've been pressing, it is a ton of fun and I enjoy playing it. It just definitely has some flaws, more flaws than Human Revolution, unfortunately. And the fact that it basically pulls a Halo 2 is a bit unforgivable. But ultimately, if you did like Human Revolution, I can absolutely recommend Mankind Divided. Playing it and experiencing the world, I think it's worth it. But most importantly, the game is now out in the wild, so I want to know what you think if you have been playing it already, and if you haven't jumped in, did I steer you away or did I steer you towards the game? Let's talk in the comments. Any questions you want, I'll be down there. I'll also answer your questions on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. I want to hear some stories though. I want to hear how you're playing through. Are you doing stealth? Are you doing guns blazing? And what are your favorite abilities? What did you really upgrade and hone first? Let's talk about all that stuff, and you guys know the deal. If you like before you buy videos, clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and I really appreciate it. Subscribing if you're new is a good idea as well, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.